Hello, this is Corey from SkySwitch, and this is going to be a quick introduction on the new button builder feature. At first, button builder will only be available to resellers on a single domain. After a short testing period, it will be opened up to all domains, then eventually available to end users to modify their own buttons, although this can be hidden from the end users if you wish. The button builder feature will be available for most Polycom and Yealink phones and will be supported. It will also be available for some models of Grandstream, HTech, and Cisco phones, although we do not plan to support those immediately. You can see our FAQ for a full list of supported devices. You will be able to access Button Builder in your domain under Inventory and then Phone Hardware. When this is exposed to end users, they will be able to access the Button Builder in the Phones tab. But here, we can see Button Builder configuration options in a few places. And this will be available on Monday, January 7th. So this Button Builder button at the top serves two purposes. There's a little drop down, and then there's the Button Builder button itself. So if you click on this, you can search for a phone or MAC address. And you can also edit your current configuration templates. The Manage All Templates does the same thing as hitting this drop down and clicking on Manage Configuration Templates. So what a template does is it allows you to create a base profile for a particular kind of device. The templates can't be shared between different device types. For example, a T42S template will not work with a T46S just because of how Button Builder works. So in here, I'm going to name this template T42S. And we're just going to say T42 basic config. And this will just give us a base profile. So in here, I'm going to select the model of Yealink T42S and click Add. So this will automatically take me to the screen to edit the template, and this will give us the first view of Button Builder. So let's talk about what's on the screen. This is fairly intuitive, but there are some things you'll have to know. So on the left side, there's a graphical representation of the phone. On the right side, we have these buttons to configure. And if you click on any of these buttons, it'll highlight the button that you're configuring on the left-hand side. At the top, you can see the domain that you're currently on, and you can see which directory that you have selected. We'll get into this part a little bit later. You can also edit the name and description of your template at the top here. For now, we're going to create a template. So we're going to basically set this up the way that we want the majority of our Yealink T42S's set up on the domain. I'm going to click on Line Appearance for the first one, and I'm going to lock this. And you'll see why I lock this later, but it prevents it from being changed by some of the automation here. On button 5 and 6, I'm just going to set up some call parks. So it will actually look for and autofill the park or BLF for you if you start to type in the extension. I actually haven't set up this call park, but it will still let me set up 700 as a call park button. I'm going to go ahead and lock that one, and I'm going to select line 6, and I'll set this up as park 2. And lock that one. So we have park 1, park 2, and a line appearance. If you click on the three dots, there's additional phone settings, which allows you to access overrides. And then you have apply backup file, download backup file, and clear all buttons. Those are pretty self-explanatory. If we click on reset here, this is just to reset the view. So if I move the image around and then zoom in and click reset, it'll reset the view back to where it was. If you have a phone with a ton of buttons, it may be useful to use this return to the top if you're editing button 27, for example. But here I will click on save. You can also save as a new template if you wanted to just modify this one and save it as a different name. we have this template set up. I'm going to go back to the inventory and go back to phone hardware. Okay, so we're going to jump into this T42S, and there's two ways that you can do it. You can, again, click on this button builder, and you can either type in the extension and get it, or you can type the MAC address, or you can go to the phone itself and click on the button builder icon. So that's what I'm going to do. Now here we just have a base config. We haven't applied our template. So I'm going to select that T42S template, click on apply, and the template generates here. Now we're going to get into the directory. If you click on the directory button, you'll see all contacts. There is an eyeball to hide the contacts if you want, so they don't show up in your automation. Now you can also click on this drop down if you want to change the ordering by first name, last name, or extension. So I'm going to keep this by extension. You can use the favorites directory. You can use the shared directory. If the domain has a shared directory set up, you can go by departments. There's multiple ways to do this. It is important to note that the directory designer from NDP does not interact with Button Builder. So if you've created directories using NDP, they're not going to show up here. This is specifically going to work off of portal contacts. We're going to leave this as all contacts, so I'm going to click on done. We have our all contacts directory. Whatever directory you select will show at the top here so you can easily see it. So now that we have the directory set up the way that we want, we can start to automate the process of setting up these BLF buttons. There's only 3 buttons, it's not going to be a big deal. But you'll notice these 3 dots, and they don't show up on a locked icon. So if you unlock the icon, they'll show up again. So let's click on the 3 dots. Here we're going to have a few options. These are cascade options, and there's also a clear button so you can delete one button at a time. But we're going to focus on the cascading and the directory. There's a dynamic setting and a static setting. The differences in these two is the dynamic setting will change if the directory changes. So for example, if you add or remove users on the domain or do a name change, the dynamic option will automatically update the phone the next time it resyncs. If you do select the dynamic option, you'll notice the buttons don't have any kind of user information. So you don't see the username, you don't see the extension. These are all going to be populated in the order of the contacts. So you can refer back to the directory button and look at your all contacts and see the order that you have them set up. So again, you can go into the directory, you can see the order of your extensions here. You can change the order, you can click on the eye to hide some. But I'm going to go back to extensions and click done. Now if you click on one of these dynamic buttons, you'll notice that the extension and the label are both grayed out. Dynamic buttons can't be changed, they'll automatically update with the directory, so whatever the directory shows, you're going to get first name and last name off of there. Now if we do change this to a static directory cascade, it's going to actually list the users, and it will still populate them initially in the order that you set them at. But we're going to show the users, and you can modify these ones. So if you want to make a change to the extension or the name, then you can modify if they're static. The one thing to be aware about with static buttons is these won't change. So if you replace a user or change the name of a user, then going back into Button Builder and changing that name for that button is going to be a manual process, or you could just go back in here after you made the change and click on static again, and it will refresh with the changes you've made in the directory. So if we change Jane Doe to someone else, you can just go back in here, click on static again, it'll refresh it. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And actually I'm going to go ahead and provision this phone. So we have the save. We also have this up arrow. You can hit save and resync. Now, one of the nice things is certain phones won't require a reboot to resync. This is done through a SIP notify with the event header saying check sync, reboot no. Now some phones don't respect that, but Yealink does. So you can see my Yealink grabbed that very quickly. And we're good to go here. So let's go back and take a look at the Polycom. And here I'm going to go into the button builder. So here we can set up another line appearance. I'll just do some manual stuff now. We'll leave this as 1001. So we have 2 line appearances for 1001. I'll set up a BLF for 1000. And we can do a custom label. If we don't choose a custom label, it's going to come with the label that we have there. I'm just going to call this Corey. We can do a call park. And save. So we can do the same thing with the directory if we wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and configure these manually. One of the nice things about Button Builder and Polycom here is we can easily rearrange the buttons. So if you've worked with overrides on a Polycom, you know it requires a little bit of work to set the buttons in different locations on the phone. For example, if you wanted to skip button 5 and start your BLF or your next button at button 6, that requires you defining what type of buttons each key on the phone is going to be. With Button Builder here, we can just drag down a button that we've created. Oops. And the drag and drop works as a swap. We can also just create whatever button we want in any random order. So let's create another button. I'll give it a custom label here. And we'll click save again. I'm going to go to the sidecar now. So you can add a sidecar, and if you click on add sidecar, it'll give you the option of what type of sidecar you want to add. I've already had a sidecar on this, so it automatically went back to this color expansion module. And it actually had my settings still in there. So you can set your BLFs or call parks on the sidecar if you want. So now I'm going to go ahead and click save and resync. Now the Polycom is going to require a reboot after the change. Certain phone models will require a reboot and certain phone models will not. It just depends on the manufacturer. If the phone does reboot, it's not going to reboot while the person is on the phone. It's going to wait until they're no longer talking to proceed with the configuration change. Okay, that's going to be all for this introductory video. If you have any questions, please visit the FAQ in the help section of your dashboard. And if you have any additional questions that aren't in the FAQ, please contact support. Thank you.